Radio, I'm Christina Onnested. Russia's President Vladimir Putin declared martial law in the 4 Ukrainian regions Russia annexed last month in a proxy referendum. This comes as it struggles to retain Donetsk, Kherson, Luhansk, and Zaporizhia. Putin's comments were translated by Al Jazeera.
Let me remind you that in the territories of the Donetsk People's Republic, the Luhansk People's Republic, as well as the Zaporizhia and Kherson regions, martial law was in effect before they joined Russia. Now we need to formalize this regime already within the framework of the Russian legislation. Therefore, I signed a decree on the introduction of martial law in these 4 entities of the Russian Federation. It will be immediately sent to the Federation Council for approval.
The order also limits the freedom to move in and out of 8 Russian provinces that border Ukraine, including Crimea. It comes as Russian forces launched mass evacuations out of Kherson, where Ukraine's counteroffensive is gaining headway. Meanwhile, Kiev's mayor says they've shot down Russian missiles directed at his city, which has seen a recent ramping up of bombardments. Greece's foreign minister visiting Kiev is among those who have relocated into a bomb shelter for safety. President Joe Biden is set to release 15 million barrels of oil from the U.S. Strategic Reserve as part of a response to recent production cuts announced by OPEC nations that is largely seen to benefit Russia's war in Ukraine. Biden will also say more oil sales are possible this winter as his administration rushes to be seen as pulling out all the stops ahead of next month's midterm elections. Biden in March authorized the release of 180 million barrels that was supposed to occur over 6 months. The Strategic Reserve now contains 400 million barrels of oil, its lowest level since 1984. The White House says it's the largest reserve of oil in the country. New Jersey officials filed a lawsuit against 5 oil and gas companies and a petroleum trade organization alleging deception on the role fossil fuels play in climate change. Attorney General Matthew Platkin and other officials accused the firms of trying to hide the link between their products and climate change Tuesday.
They led a decades-long disinformation campaign to confuse the public about fossil fuels and climate change, even though the scientific consensus was secure. They did this specifically to avoid a cleaner, lower carbon future, and to preserve their market for their commodities at the expense of the global environment and, frankly, at all of our expense. They also did this to stave off public opinion or government action that could have cut into their profits.
The lawsuit seeks civil penalties and damages, including for damage to natural resources. Oil companies criticized the lawsuit. Shell said the problem required society-wide approach rather than legal action. ExxonMobil said it was a waste of millions of dollars of taxpayer money without helping to solve the problem. President Joe Biden pledged the first bill he will send to Congress next year will be one that enshrines the right to abortion access. That's if Democrats win enough seats in Congress, with midterm elections around the corner and the future of who controls the 2 chambers along with it.
If you care about the right to choose, then you got to vote. That's why in these midterm elections are so critical to elect more Democratic senators to the United States Senate and more Democrats to keep control of the House of Representatives. And folks, if we do that, here's the promise I make to you and the American people. The first bill that I will send to the Congress will be to codify Roe v. Wade. And when Congress passes it, I'll sign it in January, 50 years after Roe was first decided the law of the land. And together we'll restore the right to choose for every woman in every state in America. So vote.
Republicans are widely projected to gain control of at least the House in November. Should they win the House, Biden warned they'll try to send him a national abortion ban and pledged he'd veto it. The Biden administration also announced Tuesday $15 million in funding for states to develop community behavioral health clinics that operate 24/7 around the clock, regardless of ability to pay. Here's Health and Human Services Secretary Javier Becerra.
We are taking steps that this country has never before tried to go towards, and that is to treating mental health on par with physical health. And let this be remembered as a year where we laid the gauntlet to everyone. We challenged everyone to join us to make sure we showed that. Today we're talking about providing to Americans 24/7 support for crisis care. That's something that's only been available to some in some places, but depending on your income and your zip code, you could be totally out of luck. That's going to start to change.
Last year, the nation's Surgeon General declared a national mental health crisis amidst the COVID-19 pandemic lockdowns. An Iranian climber Elnaz Rakabi returned to Tehran after competing in South Korea without wearing a headscarf yesterday. Her move was seized upon by demonstrators as the Islamic Republic has faced weeks of protest over a woman's death while in custody of the morality police for not wearing a headscarf. I'm Christina Onnested reporting for Pacifica Radio.